Flames lighting up the night sky. It's been nearly 4 years now since fire was set by gang members, devastating Denver's Holly Square. Well, now there's a plan to reclaim it from crime and to give it back to the community.
This neighborhood has been the center of a lot of things over the last 20 years. For the most part, it has been a center of gang activity, it's been a center of violence, it's been a center of less than safety.
This building was the original Safeway store that through all the fire was the original thing still standing. So we take pride in that too, because that's a lot of history in this location right here.
When we came here 6 years ago, it literally was a giant black hole in the ground that used to be a shopping center that had been firebombed in a gang war, and what this community had left of its centerpiece was a bunch of asbestos and chars and old memories.
And as we rebuild and look for the future, that we bring things that complement the neighborhood and what the community wants as well.
And what they wanted to do was be a part of rebuilding this community, not just into what it was, but into what they hoped it could be. And that meant a long, long effort to first bring a Boys and Girls Club, to bring basketball courts, to bring a library, to bring a community center, with the dream that ultimately one day what we'd love to have at the centerpiece of this neighborhood would be a school. A school where all of the kids, all of the families in this neighborhood would know they could come to help their own kids achieve their dreams. They could do it without having to get on a bus, without having to drive across town, but just be able to walk to their own neighborhood. And so this was always our dream, was that someday we could have a school at the centerpiece of this, and no better place to put down roots than here.
I chose the name Roots mostly because I geek out about aspen groves. So the largest living organism in the world is an aspen grove in Utah. And you can look at a mountain full of thousands of aspen trees, and each one's growing in its own way, thriving in its own way. Underneath the ground, all of the roots are connected. And so I love that as a metaphor for the community of a school, where all of us are growing and thriving in our own way.
John in the early board back in 2012, and him even before that in 2011, was really to crack this code of what we saw as this really lack of optimization in early education, where you have a situation where there's a group of students with very different needs all in the same room, learning one thing. And that just isn't optimal for anybody.
One of the problems that the schools I was working with had was very similar to the one I had in the classroom, where you have 28 kids in one classroom who might be the same age, but couldn't be more different as far as their academic preparation and their skills and their gaps and their passions and their interests.
And the question for a long time has been, how do you take this traditional model of 30 kids in a box with a teacher and turn it into this personalized experience? Our hypothesis was you can't take that model and make it personalized. You have to start over with a totally different approach.
That was one of the challenges that we were problem solving around, is how could we change the structure of school to enable us to get closer and closer to that nirvana of teaching the right content to the right group of kids at the right time in the right way for them.
Our design process, we started off with this idea, right? This really meaty challenge of personalized schedules for every student in a space for 100 kids. And for us, that meant thinking very differently about the space we were in as a school, and then also about the use of time and scheduling for students.
Jill and I spent a lot of time taking okay, here's what we want to achieve, what we want Roots to look like, and then now there's a million hows that we have to figure out. And so taking each of the hows one by one, kind of listing out what our assumptions are around them, and figuring out how we can test them effectively prior to opening school.
There were a few guiding principles that we used during the design process. The first one was fail fast. So figure out if something is going to fail quickly and then move on. And I think the sister principle of that is to take all of the assumptions that you have about a tool or a piece of curriculum or a schedule and find out all the different micro assumptions you're making in there and test those one at a time.
It's been a journey. When we started the process with the Denver Foundation and other partners, it really started with the root of the community, and it took many focus group meetings to come about a plan. So it didn't happen overnight.
Watching the little kids walk into school on the first day, a bunch of the folks from our office, the neighbors, all came to come welcome them, congratulate them. I think the parents thought we were kind of crazy, but for us, it sort of felt like sending our own kids off to school for the first time. And so we think this is the beginning of a real stage of transformation.